if you've listened to a few episodes of our podcast, perhaps you're on a site or a construction job, or you're working in a trade and you're listening to this thinking, could I do that?
That applies broadly to 9-to-5 jobs. If you're employed or self-employed, but you're trading your time for money, there's always a cap to how much you can earn. But when you tie your income to the profits of a business, that's when you remove the cap and it suddenly becomes limitless.
I guess this is just offering an alternative at a time in somebody's life who might be listening to this right now where they think, I really need an out.
The mindset is so transferable. So even though the skills aren't there, the can-do attitude, the hard work ethic, the ability to learn new skills frequently.
There's almost this awakening in society. It's evolving, and with the advent of the internet, people are starting to realize, and I think really started to realize a long time ago, but now the knowledge is filtering through, not just to the entrepreneur, the e-commerce crowd, but it's actually getting out to people who maybe had never even heard of this concept or business model years ago.
I got my first sale this morning. It was such an amazing feeling.
Divert the energy that I would have expended on physical labor through to mental labor to form a system that can allow me to then earn an income from a laptop where I can be, or even a phone on the other side of the planet in a warmer country, sitting by the pool with my friends, family, children, whatever. You can see why people are picking it. Welcome to the Dropship Unlocked Podcast, where we unlock the secrets to high-ticket dropshipping and achieving financial freedom. I'm Lewis Smith, founder of Dropship Unlocked, and I'm joined by James Eardley, client success coach at Dropship Unlocked. Each episode, we'll be sharing our experiences and providing you with the tools you need to build a successful e-commerce empire of your own. From zero to owning £1 million online business, we'll help you achieve the ultimate freedom over your time, location, and financial future. And when we're not recording the podcast episodes or running our own e-commerce businesses, you'll find us helping people like you launch their own high-ticket dropshipping businesses. To learn more about working with us, head over to dropshipunlocked.com/free. Now sit back, relax, and get ready to access your full potential with the Dropship Unlocked podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast with James Eardley, and I'm joined with the serial entrepreneur and founder of Dropship Unlocked, Lewis Smith. So today we have a really special episode, especially for those of you who have a trade background or in the construction industry more broadly. It will also talk about reasons why people are leaving 9-to-5 jobs more broadly, but we've seen particularly a growing trend of people coming from a trades background into our community. So we're going to be talking about why people are transitioning from hammer and nails to clicks and sales. So Lewis, why do you think this is happening?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that I highly admire the work and respect the work that tradespeople do, right? Without them, society wouldn't function. We wouldn't have, nothing would happen. We wouldn't get anything built. Nothing would kind of get constructed. So I think it's vital to say that initially the conversation here is not to try to dissuade people from the trades into dropshipping, but to provide a viable alternative at a point where maybe the manual labor work and the toll that's taking on your physicality from doing that and being out in the cold, and maybe you just want a bit more autonomy and control over your time and financial freedom, there is a viable alternative that can be done as a complete alternative or can be done as a supplementary kind of side hustle income source to build up multiple income streams on the side. But it certainly wouldn't be my intention to say that don't go into a trade or leave a trade and start a dropshipping business, because I think if we did that, society would collapse, right? So it's vital that we do have tradespeople, but I'd hate for people who are stuck in a position where they don't enjoy their work and they wish that they could find an alternative to not know about something like this, because I haven't worked in industry like that, but if I did, I'd certainly be grateful to hear about something like this at a point in my life where I felt like I couldn't take any more of it. And so this episode isn't necessarily just about tradespeople, but I guess it's more of a general conversation about a wider type of manual labor work, right? Work that takes a huge physical toll on your body, work that takes you away from your family, work that, involves you being outside in the cold, working through harsh winters. We get a surprising amount of people that end up joining Dropship Unlocked program who work on oil rigs, which is really interesting. I didn't realize that we'd have such a high demographic of people that join us from there. But I guess when you're away from your family, you're out at sea for such long extended periods of time, and maybe all you have is like a laptop or an iPad, what better thing to do than start an online business in your downtime, right? So I can kind of see why it works, but it's just not something that I would have ever expected because it's not a journey that I've taken. But yeah, I think the current challenges are pretty clear for tradespeople, not to mention the physical toll that it takes on your body over the long term, that repetitive strain that you'll start to get. You'll often hear about tradespeople who've worked on building sites for years talking about their backs gone, their knees have gone, their arms have, but these things are quite common complaints and gripes that you hear from people in that industry. So I think that's the first thing. It's the physicality of it, but it's also, like I mentioned, the effect of the weather, the freezing cold winters. We're not blessed with the best weather at all times in the UK. That's definitely one of the downsides, I think, of living here. And so if you're forced to be exposed to the elements in that way, you possibly are seeking an alternative. So this is a nice alternative method of earning an income to that as well. Not to mention, aside from the weather and the physicality, the general just economic uncertainties of working in an industry like that. I think, chasing your employer to actually get paid for the work that you're doing, whether it's you're a contractor on site and the projects are not paying up as they should be or on time. I think with the influx of the internet and the digital age and how society is really changing and evolving, people are starting to see these opportunities open up online, which allows them that flexibility, that autonomy, that control over their time, their location. And so they're kind of going from working with concrete into working in the cloud. It's that transition, like you said, from hammer and nails to clicks and sales. It's moving across into an online space. And I think it's just that when people realize that, if you've listened to a few episodes of our podcast, perhaps you're on a site or a construction job, or you're working in a trade and you're listening to this thinking, could I do that? Once you start to realize the potential for the level of growth with an online business, an e-commerce business, unlike with a salaried job where the financial upside of your income is capped by the amount of hours that you can work, the upside of high ticket dropshipping using the home turf advantage model that we use is practically limitless, right? Because you aren't capped by your wage or your hours that you can put in. Instead, your earnings grow in direct proportion to your business's success, how much value you can add to the marketplace. So it's not just a job replacement, it's an opportunity to create a significant financial wealth that can change the course of your life and your family's life as well.
Yeah, that applies broadly to 9-to-5 jobs. If you're employed or self-employed, but you're trading your time for money, there's always a cap to how much you can earn. But when you tie your income to the profits of a business, that's when you remove the cap and it suddenly becomes limitless. As long as you continue to improve the business and improve the value that you can provide to the market as a whole, your income will drastically increase as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with online businesses, you're not necessarily replacing the trades by creating online businesses, because the trades still exist. They will still need to exist for many years to come. But I guess this is just offering an alternative at a time in somebody's life who might be listening to this right now where they think, I really need an out. I really need a route out, an exit plan, some kind of alternative income source that gives me a more comfortable path for people who are in a position where their body or their finances or, their distance from loved ones simply can't sustain the physical demands of working in a manual labor job like that anymore. So I think there's almost this like awakening in society. It's evolving, and with the advent of the internet, people are starting to realize, and I think really started to realize a long time ago, but are now the knowledge is like filtering through, not just to the entrepreneur, the e-commerce crowd, but it's actually getting out to people who maybe had never even heard of this concept or business model years ago, who are now realizing that, hang on a second, I work really hard, I'm good at problem solving, I have a can-do positive growth mentality. Yes, I don't have the skills, but I'm willing to learn the skills. Just show me where to learn them, right? And that's the same realization I had. So on that level, I can relate because I didn't have a background in this at all. But when I made that transition and that flip, that switch flipped in my mind, and I realized, oh, it's just a mindset shift here. I just need to be willing to go and find the answers now. What's stopping me from achieving success and results with this? So I think it's the exact same thing, whether you're discovering the methods that you would never have come into contact with previously through your friends and family and work colleague circles through a podcast like ours. You could now go back and listen to the whole back catalogue of this podcast, right back to episode 1 or episode 0, or if you want a fast track and you want to really kind of jump into it and you want someone to guide you through, hold your hand, get the business up and running, you can work with us to do that at Dropship Unlocked as well. So there's kind of like every step. There's the free podcast, YouTube video method that you can just absorb content until you're ready to take that jump. And then obviously there's the point where if you're ready to invest in yourself and you really want to take it seriously, then there are mentorship programs that you can jump into with like-minded people already achieving the thing that you're setting out to achieve. So I just think if you feel that your time has come to get off the building site and you're ready to do that, then you can start building a site of your own, start building your e-commerce site.
A different kind of site entirely, but absolutely. The mindset is so transferable. So even though the skills aren't there, the can-do attitude, the hard work ethic, the ability to learn new skills frequently. Also speaking with customers, if you're self-employed and you have to go out and speak to customers and find work, you've got very good people skills, able to sell to people as well. That's all transferable. So although you don't have the specific skills, they can be learned through podcasts, YouTube, mentorship programs. That can come. It's the mindset that really is ingrained, and that's what will push you through. Absolutely. So I have some tradespeople in my family, and I hear these sort of complaints, absolutely justified complaints, that you get to a certain age and your body starts to feel the effects. And there's only so many winters that you can go through the outside work and really until it starts to take a big toll. And also something that really struck with me is a complaint that I've heard from people in the trades is that their income and their earning is completely tied to their health. So if they're ill or if they're injured or if they're off work for any reason, suddenly the money can dry up, unless you're employed, of course. But if you're self-employed, you're completely reliant on your body every day to get up and start working for you to earn. Whereas if you're in a business and you run an online dropshipping business, you can set it up as a machine. So whether you're ill, injured, unable to work, it can still work without you, and you don't have to stop earning when you're not able to work. So it makes a lot of sense, some of the different complaints and the difficulties that people have. But what I want to know more, Lewis, is why do you think people are specifically choosing dropshipping?
Yeah, well, to come in quickly on the point that you mentioned there about having a contingency if ever you get ill, I think that's one of my personal motivators, fears, drivers, whatever you want to call it, that I think to myself, what happens if I become incapacitated? What if I can't work anymore? Like, God forbid, I look after my health. I try to eat healthily. I exercise a lot. I try and keep my stress low, but you never know what's around the corner, right? Something could happen at any moment. And, you put the right insurances in place. You try to protect your family. But I have dependents now. I've got 2 children. I've got a wife. Like, I've got to make sure that they're okay if anything were to happen to me. And so the way that I've set up these businesses and the way that I'd advise you do as well, if you're starting to see success and results with online businesses, is you want to put like legacy plans in place and contingency plans in place so that if anything did happen to you and like for some reason for 6 months you were unable to do anything or log in and, imagine you just couldn't interact with the business, can everything still continue without you? At a baseline level, of course, it's not going to continue to grow at the level if you were involved, but I just think that's a really interesting thought exercise to challenge yourself on, because it forces you to think about things slightly differently and put contingencies in place and make sure that, you can have automations that are like, if I haven't logged in for 30 days, send an email to my wife that gives her access to the right things that then she can log in and take the reins and have a video there that's like, hey, if you're watching this, then something bad might have happened, but here's how we deal with it. So I know it's slightly off topic, but I thought it was a really interesting point to raise because not many people want to talk about that stuff. And I think having a legacy plan in place is really important.
Absolutely. And I've tried to replicate the same with my businesses and the work that I do, but very difficult if you are in a job that is completely tied to your skills and your day-to-day time. So I can see why people are looking to create their own business and be able to set things up for life beyond them. And when they start to, if they ever have anything happen to them, it's an important point.
Yeah, definitely. But to your question about why people would be choosing dropshipping specifically as a business model, because obviously there's lots of different business models. I think imagine if you are in the position right now where you're working on building sites, you're in construction, you're in a trade of some kind, or even just a manual labor job, and you're required to be at that job, 7 or 8 a.m. every day, regardless of the weather, in the cold, you're tired, you're physically drained, you're not getting to see your family and friends. You're putting your body at risk. Probably there's usually an element of danger involved in these roles, certainly more danger than just, sitting at your desk and working on a computer. And it starts to take a physical toll on your long-term health, which ultimately is the most important thing, because without that, we have nothing. There's no point having a great business if you don't have your long-term health. So I can totally see why people would get to that point where they realize, hang on a sec, there's a threshold here of like, when my body starts to deteriorate, I'm on the wrong path. I want to now change. Now is the moment to do that. And so I think the alternative is being willing to switch and saying, okay, I'm not going to just use my body here to try to earn an income, but if I can use my mind to create that higher income and divert the energy that I would have expended on physical labor through to mental labor to form a system that can allow me to then earn an income from a laptop where I can be, or even a phone on the other side of the planet in a warmer country, sitting by the pool with my friends, family, children, whatever, you can see why people are picking it, right? And I think there are so many different online business models, because you could in theory say that about any online business model, but with the home turf advantage model of high ticket domestic dropshipping, the nice thing is it's tangible and you're building a long-term sustainable brand that you can be proud of, that you can stand behind and be happy and proud to tell your friends about. Because I think it's not so much of a jump for people who've maybe come from a completely non-e-commerce related background to start selling tangible physical products online. We're not saying like, okay, you need to create this web of like affiliate websites, and then you have like all these affiliate partner portals, and then you have to like log your conversion clicks and make sure that you've got an attribution model set up to, and it's like, that's overwhelming for somebody who has never earned a penny online before. But if you say, oh, you're basically making a shop on a website and you sell products and they go to people's houses, it's like, oh, I can get my head around that. As a starting point, I'm not saying you stop there. Of course, if you want to then create other online businesses later, then great. But as a gateway business model to the online world, I don't think there's anything that beats it, because you don't have huge barriers to entry. You're not having to invest huge amounts of money up front. You don't need to hold any inventory. So it's not like FBA or Amazon, fulfilled by Amazon. You don't have to ever carry stock or worry about storage or, shipping items to warehouses or anything like that. Your supplier does all of that. You have complete location and time flexibility, which obviously is important if you're trying to transition out of somewhere that demands that you're in one place for a certain duration of your life every day. And yeah, you can operate that business from anywhere in the world. So I just think that it's worth viewing it that it's not necessarily easier than traditional work. It's just difficult in a different way. You're trading one set of challenges for another. So I don't want to paint the picture that it's a walk in the park. It's not, but it's definitely more of a mental energy expenditure than it is physical, which doesn't have such a long-term effect on your body, assuming you manage your stress well and follow a path that is going to get you up and running and you don't get extremely frustrated by it, which is what we try and lay out for you in our program.
So important. I think tradespeople or people from a physical background, they can still play to their strengths. So although it's still tough and challenging to get a business up and running, of course, but the hard work ethic initially is required to get anything off the ground, and the people skills. So calling suppliers, for example, that's a big element of setting up a high ticket dropshipping store. And I think, and for the tradespeople that we've spoke to, and they've confirmed this, that's one of their best skills, is the people skills, speaking with people, picking up the phone to a supplier and explaining why they should work with them. So that there's parts of the job that I think really, although some of it will be completely foreign, some of it you can be able to pick up and really excel in. So I can definitely see the appeal. So Lewis, do we have some examples then of tradespeople who have transitioned successfully?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We have quite a few in our community who've made that transition from a tradesperson through to an online e-commerce business owner, entrepreneur. So a particular standout case for us is the story of one of our members called Iain Lyons. So Iain is a roof cladder and sheeter. Now, he was really struggling with the job that he was in. He's been in that job for many, many years, and it's an extremely physically demanding job. He is exposed to cold winters. He's got, it takes a huge toll on his body. It's not something that in the long term is going to do his overall physical health any favors, right? The other thing, which we mentioned earlier in the episode, is that he's often not getting paid on time, or when he should, he's having to chase his employer for payment. So mentally it's stressful as well, not to mention he's putting his body at risk and, he's risking his long-term physical health. So he was in a position where he'd started a business in the past, which unfortunately hadn't worked out. It was a bricks and mortar business, and it had failed. And he was kind of at quite a low point. He said himself when we spoke to him that he'd reached a real low point, and he was just close to giving up with the whole concept of trying to run his own business and just going back to being a roofer. But one day, I think he said he saw an ad, one of our ads on YouTube, and clicked on it, watched our free training, which is the dropshipunlocked.com/free. It's the free training that we put together, kind of guiding you through how to start with the home turf advantage model. And he said at that moment, he realized this was different. This wasn't like the other things he'd seen ads for. And so he booked a call with our team, decided to become a member of Dropship Unlocked, and I guess he was set on a new path. And so he then joined us, jumped into our community, and is making great strides towards his goal of leaving his job to pursue his e-commerce business full time so that he can leave behind that physically demanding job that he's worked in for so many years. And we actually spoke to Iain yesterday to ask him why he thought more tradespeople were turning to e-commerce. And here's what he had to say. Thanks so much, Iain, for jumping on the call and for joining us today. So really interested to hear a bit more about your background, obviously as a tradesman. So maybe you could bring us up to speed on what brought you to Dropship Unlocked, what your background was, and what some of the challenges were in that previous role that you were doing that led you to want to start your own online business in the first place.
Well, my background is I started off in the construction industry, a roof sheeter and cladder from a young age, and continued on. And eventually in 2002, my father actually started up his own roof sheeting business. And then soon after that, I went back to college at night, classes, etc. Went into become QS, into project management. Still within the industry. I am back in with my previous company, do the job, which I hopefully, with it all going well now, finish at the end of this month and concentrate on that one online store.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of drew you towards wanting to start an online business in the first place? Because I guess, like, what are some of the challenges in your day-to-day work at the moment that led you to come and enroll with us at Dropship Unlocked and begin this journey? Like, what are the challenges you're facing day-to-day, or people in your situation typically face?
The biggest thing for me, especially getting that's me just on 50 now, and the cold winters. That is one of the biggest, and getting paid. The construction industry is a really hard trying to get the money in. I've always wanted to get out of what I call the rat race. To me, it's not financial, it's all to do with more time to myself. But I do want to go travelling later on in life as well, so I have to balance it up.
That sounds really tough, I think. And so with, I guess something you mentioned there that's quite interesting is just the concept of getting paid is tough in itself, which I think most people would take for granted. You know, as an e-commerce business owner, we certainly take that for granted. It's like, well, we only do anything with our stores once the orders come through, right? But the concept of actually you put in such hard work, you're out in the cold, you're working as hard as you are, it's such a manual job. And then to think that the client has the cheek to then not pay you on top of it, and you have to then chase them for the money, I can imagine that's extremely frustrating at times, right, Iain?
Very frustrating. Pulling your hair out all the time is very, very stressful.
I can imagine. So what was it then? I mean, where did you first hear about the concept of dropshipping and online business? Was it from us? Was it from a book? Was it something you saw online?
It was Facebook, online. I was just looking for something different. I didn't really understand the dropshipping and what affiliate marketing. I didn't understand any of them. Did a lot of research into it and found you guys, but I nearly gave up because there's so many fakes out there. I did a lot of research and so many of them are fake. Promise you, you'll be a millionaire. You've got to work for it. They're going to promise you they'll build everything for you. So and then delivery from China, it just is, how's this all going to work? I can't get my head around this. So I gave up and I actually got a link. It was actually your introduction video, an hour and 15 minutes long, but I was totally inspired within a few minutes. And I says, that's what I want to do. And I quickly signed up. But as soon as I went through the process, and you accepted me, which was, at the time of my life at that time, was a big thing. But that introduction video had me the whole way through. I says, that's what I want to do. And that's how I go. I says, dropshipping was definitely the thing I wanted after listening. You're such an inspiring person.
Awesome. That's great to hear, and glad that we hooked your attention with that introductory video. So that's the free training video that we talk about that people can get started with to kind of learn about our model, like you said, about an hour long, and kind of runs through the whole process. So great to hear that that was the beginning of your journey. I mean, you mentioned that there's so many fakes out there. There's so many of these kind of like gurus promising the world and then under delivering, or, you know, the model turns out to be dropshipping cheap products from China or buying it on Amazon, selling it on eBay, whatever the method that they claim, you know, works so well is. And it all kind of crumbles when you start to put the business together, because it's not long-term, it's not sustainable, it's not a real business. So what was it about the way that we do things at Dropship Unlocked and the home turf advantage model that we talked about in the video? What was it that kind of caught your attention with that and made you feel like that was a better route for you?
You weren't promising the earth. You weren't saying, I'm going to make you millions. You know, I'm not going to make you rich. You've got to put the hard work in. You're not saying you're going to put the stuff together for us. You've got to do it. You're just giving us the guidelines. And I says, that it's more worthwhile, more beneficial to the person. You have a really, really good program. The community we have, I can't fault it. Everyone is so supportive because we're all in the same boat, and so helpful. So they answer the questions. Even James comes on and answers.
The reason the community works so well is because of people with the same attitude as yourself, Iain. So, you know, it's credit to you for being one of the members that makes the community what it is, because a community without individuals like yourself who don't have that mindset is nothing, right? So it's very much made up of the individuals who are within it, who have that type of approach. They're grateful to be there. They want to grow. They want to build. And absolutely, we're very lucky to have James on our team as well, who's a real asset to our community and the management of our community as well. So talk us through a bit, Iain, about how you've found the program so far. Have you enjoyed it so far? Like, what specifically have you found most helpful since actually jumping into Dropship Unlocked? Because you're not that long into the program, I know, but because you had a relevant background to the topic of this podcast episode, we'd be really keen to understand what you found most enjoyable or most helpful as parts of the program so far along your journey.
I've really enjoyed it, and the whole program so far. Still to complete it yet. And don't get me wrong, I have been frustrated on so many occasions, but it's silly little things. The program, I've learned so much from the program. It's given me life skills that I never thought. For example, I didn't know you could do so much with Google, but that's just an example. The first section, the mindset, the destination. Now, I still look at my picture board every day. Having this interview, I have that on my destiny, my why from the start, saying I want my success story to be given. I thought it would be much later, but I was very focused on that. I think that really did help me, especially right at the very start where my situation was. I thought it changed my mindset totally, made me a lot more positive. Researching, like I said, I didn't realise Google did so much. I've only used it for shopping before. Then building the website, that was the bit I was most worried about. And to be honest, it was a lot easier than what I thought it would be, and I'm a lot happier with the end result. Finding the suppliers, that was my favourite part. Don't get me wrong, the first one was always daunting. I still remember in my living room with my script going over it and over it and over it before I made that call. But after the first one, I've done most of mine have all been face-to-face now. I've been away to 2 trade shows, been away to see suppliers. It's been an absolutely amazing experience. Really enjoyed it. The mastery section, Google Ads. I've just started. I've just got my smart shopping up and running on the 30th of June. It's been the most difficult one for me. That's been the most difficult one. While as well, I was in for an operation. And I was out the shooting for a wee while. We'll see. So apart from that, I think I've done all right. I know that people do it a lot quicker, and well done if you have the time to do so. But I've said it in the chat many, many times. This is not a sprint. You're setting up a lifestyle. It's a marathon. Just keep at it.
Definitely. They're very wise words there, and I think that's definitely something that we try to reiterate throughout the process. And I think sometimes people who are looking at a program online where they find some training course or something that they want to do, they often just look for like, what's the cheapest course that I can get? You know, what's the fastest thing I can just watch a few videos, throw it together and kind of, you know, my business is up and running. But why did you not go that route, and instead you went with our mentorship program where you've got the live Q&A calls, where you've got the community, where you've got that kind of premium level support, rather than just going for the cheapest course out there that you could find? Because there are plenty of them, right? I'm sure you saw them along your way. Why did you choose to come with us instead?
I chose this program because of your video and because of the research I did before, not the one for me. I chose your one To be quite honest, I didn't think the course was that expensive. But with my knowledge throughout this course now, the community itself, the Facebook community that we have, to me, that's worth the investment itself, not in the course, because it's such a powerful tool.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. So a big worry that people have when they're looking to start their own e-commerce business, specifically with this type of dropshipping, where we onboard UK suppliers who can offer next day delivery to their customers, is actually signing the supplier. I think a lot of the times people would just prefer to sign a supplier on Alibaba and just have a conversation over the keyboard. But we're building real long-term brand relationships here. So you've obviously signed your first supplier now. Can you talk us through how many suppliers you've had and what that experience has been like of actually signing those suppliers up? How many do you have on board now, Iain?
I have 7 actually signed and agreed, and I have quite a few in the pipeline who want further discussions. So I'm very happy that was all from that last trade show. It was really well worth doing. I've got quite a lot of products to add to the site, so I'm going to have a huge range now. Once I get everything uploaded, everything takes time.
Amazing. So you've got 7 suppliers signed now, Iain, many more to come, I imagine. So talk to us a bit about sales. Like, I know that you're very, very early in the process. Have you made any sales yet?
I actually have. I Google Ads and set it, got it live on the 30th of June, which is 5 days ago. I got my first sale this morning. It was such an amazing feeling. I actually was working away this morning and I picked up my phone to go onto the Facebook page to ask to put a comment in about couriers. Just picked my phone up and it gave the ka-ching. I gave it a massive squeal of excitement. Just the concept, I've got a wee office here. I've managed to rent a small office. And the ladies in the next office came running through wondering what was going on. So I was very excited. My phone was up in the air. It's just a small sale. I didn't even know what it was. I just got the ka-ching saying I made a sale. I was so excited. Been on the Texas telling everybody. It's been an amazing feeling. Put it on Facebook, put it on a group chat this morning. What a feeling. And I hope that's just 5 days of Google Ads. Couldn't believe it.
Amazing. I think a lot of people aspire to hear that first ka-ching sound, because once you've made that first sale, you realize I've just made money without having to be out in the cold, without having to trade my time for money, without having to do hard manual labor work, without having to chase somebody to pay me for having done it. They've come to me while I was sleeping, while I was sitting in the office. How does that feel, knowing that you've now cracked a way of making money online without trading your time or your manual labor for money?
Well, it feels amazing. It just goes to show the process, it works. I can't say that enough. The process does work. I've said it all the way through. Trust the process. Keep going. Don't dabble. Just keep concentrating on it. Follow the steps and you'll get there. Doesn't matter how long it takes you. Just keep going.
Oh, that's incredible. Thank you so much for that, Iain. James, anything else you wanted to add there, or?
Nothing else to add. No, I think that was perfect, Iain. Thanks so much for your answers today. I mean, I know you're very early in the process still, but definitely an inspirational story just to get to the stage you're at now. You know, the background you've got, been through a difficult time, got to this stage. I'm sure you'll keep up the progress just the way you're going. Yeah, I'm keen to hear.
Just if you were talking to the former Iain now, who was kind of in that stage of your life and thinking, shouldn't I? You know, you're on the fence about doing something like this, as I'm sure a lot of our listeners are, who are probably in similar positions to yourself, whether they're in the similar industry or a completely different industry. What would you say to someone in your shoes who was unsure about investing in themselves and joining a mentorship program like this?
Absolutely go for it. I left school with nothing and went into construction. I did go back to school when I was 28, back to college, sorry, when I was 28, just to do a HND in quantities of air. But the least school went on, and then now to have a business that I'm going to have a lifestyle now is exceptional. I would definitely advise anyone who has the willpower to go on for it, because it's a mentality you need to do something like this. Forget about the worry, just go for it. You can do this on a part-time basis to set it up. You can still work full-time. It takes longer, but you can still do it. But just absolutely, we all go for it.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for sharing, Iain. We appreciate that. And hopefully your words of advice will resonate with somebody who needs to hear those right now. So we really appreciate you joining us on the Dropship Unlocked podcast and for sharing your story. We wish you all the best of success, and we'll be following your journey and helping wherever we can along the way, Iain.
Amazing to hear about Iain's story and how far he's come So a great interview that we were able to have with him yesterday, and inspirational to hear. Although he's still early in his journey, you can see that he's on his way to success. He's really got the right mindset. And the fact that he'd made his first sale on the same day that we had that recording with him, I mean, stroke of luck. It was great to hear about. I always love hearing about when people make that first sale and they start to get really excited about where they can go. And he made his first high ticket sale after just 5 days of running ads. So you can start to see how quickly things can turn around for him. So I can't wait to see his continued success.
Yeah, Ian's going to do amazingly well. I mean, we're going to support him every step of the way as a member of Dropship Unlocked, but it's just great to see the initial signs, like you say, 5 days after running ads, made his first high ticket sale. That's the first time you realize, oh, I've just made money without trading my physical energy or time for money. And so it's a turning point, and I'm sure that it's the first of many, many sales for years to come for Ian. So great to catch up with you, Ian. I mean, we have plenty of other members in the program also from a trades background. So a few that spring to mind, Slavcho, who is a painter and decorator. He was working in a very physically demanding job, different type of job, but still, in the trades, working hard every day, coming home exhausted, covered in paint, like frustrated, didn't see a huge amount of his friends and family, trading his time for money, not in a scalable role, taking its toll on his physical health over the long term. And when he started with us at Dropship Unlocked, I remember that initially he was struggling to make that transition. We'd had a chat about things, and he was saying he had to adapt his way of thinking, in that now he had to channel that focus towards being able to do something online. And that he actually offered our community, he said that he would offer to paint a member of the Dropship Unlocked community's house for free, which is an incredible offer. So thank you so much for that, Slapcho. I don't know if anyone's taken him up on the offer yet, but what an offer. And I think what that does is highlights the kind of people that we look to select for the Dropship Unlocked community. Like, they're givers, they're not takers. They're people who arrive at the community with a view on, yes, I want to change my life, but how can I also bring other people up with me? How can I give back to the community that's going to help me achieve this life-changing business? And if you don't have e-commerce skills that you can share, like Slavcho didn't, because that wasn't his background, then he's offering the value that he can offer, which is the skills that he has of painting and decorating. So what an amazing offer. And I think it's because of this positive can-do, giving back mentality and attitude, and his perseverance to overcome those hurdles and those challenges, that Slavcho's now achieved £11,000 in revenue since starting. And remember, he is just starting with this, and he had zero experience prior with e-commerce, prior to joining us. So I think that's a reminder to anybody who's in a position where they think, I don't know if I could do it. I don't have a background in that. If Slavcho has got up and running and has done £11,000 in revenue coming from a painter and decorator background to starting an e-commerce business, and I don't even think English is his first language, there's an incredible achievement, right, in such a short space of time.
It is truly an incredible achievement. Great to see the community that we've got of such diverse backgrounds as well. Perhaps if we get enough trades backgrounds, we'll have enough to put together a full construction of perhaps a DSU office building or something. We'll have that many members. If they all do well and offer out free services, I think we'll be doing well.
This is it. So yeah, talking of constructing the DSU office empire, another member of our program, Konstantin, who is a scaffolder, recently became a Dropship Unlocked member and is now running his store successfully online. I think currently doing it alongside his job, but will soon, I'm sure, transition to doing it full time. Ravjeet, an electrician, who slightly different trade, but came from that kind of trades background, has managed to secure his first 5 suppliers within just a few months since joining the Dropship Unlocked program. So he now has a business. He can start uploading his products. He can get up and running, get sales starting to come through, get his ad campaigns going. So there are many more examples of people like this. And I don't think that it's a trend that's going to slow down anytime soon. I can't see why it would. There are plenty of tradespeople out there, and as we have a population that continues to age, there are going to be more people who reach that age where they're like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not putting my body under this strain or this stress anymore. So if you're listening to us right now and you're in a job that's similar to these guys, it's physically demanding, it's taking its toll on your body, you don't feel like it's doing you any favors for your long-term health, and you don't want to be spending that time away from your family, you don't want to be exposed to the elements, working outside in cold winters, and instead you'd prefer to be able to travel to exotic climates and have your income come to you through a laptop without trading your time for money, then don't cheat yourself out of that future by thinking that you couldn't do this. Because as I've just explained, there are people with far less experience than you have in the online world and online space who have done it successfully. So the question you need to ask yourself is, if they've done it, why can't you? What makes you different from them?
Exactly. And the more tradespeople we get into the community, the better. Such a great, hard-working bunch, and they really offer a lot of value to the community, which we see on a daily basis. Ian's a very active member in the community. That's always great to see. So some truly inspiring stories of members who have been able to transition from tradespeople into the dropshipping world, which is always good to hear about. So thanks for sharing those with us today, Lewis. So we've touched on it before a little bit, and sort of the difficulties that people will have inevitably when going from one sort of industry to another. So let's talk a little bit about that. So the transition from being a tradesperson to running a dropshipping business is not going to be easy, is it?
No, of course it's going to be challenging, but in a totally different type of way. Like any new venture or learning any new skill, it's going to take time. In order for you to master what you're trying to do, it's going to take effort to learn and figure out the necessary skills. And so you have to be willing to put in that time and that effort and overcome those mindset blocks that will arise as you go through and leave your comfort zone. I think many tradespeople might feel daunted by the digital world. That's something we hear commonly, where they say, I've got no experience or background in this. Is this really possible for someone like me? But it's important to remember that the guys that I just mentioned, none of them had experience in the world of e-commerce. I didn't, you didn't, right? We figured this stuff out along the way, and now we've created a very step-by-step blueprint to guide people through step-by-step, day by day, how to get one of these up and running whilst trying to minimize the risk of it not working along the way. So that fear of uncertainty that comes from going from a regular wage over to running a business can be intimidating. But I think with the right strategies, the right commitment, and the right mental framing, it really is possible to build a successful and sustainable business. And I would say that, as we alluded to earlier, the bigger risk is staying in a job where you are trading your time for money, because the risk is that what if you can no longer do that? What if you become injured? What happens to your family's income at that point, right? This is the thing, like, you're taking less of a risk in the long term by transitioning, by learning a business like this, because then if and when, hopefully it never happens to you, but if it ever did, you're covered, you're protected, you have an income source that works independently of you, and you've built a system that you can rely on and kind of allow to pay you regardless of what you're doing or where you are in the world at any one time. So that's really important. The other thing is that people think, oh, do I just quit my job and have to just go and do this full time? And that's not the case. You can do it on the side. People do build these businesses on the side. Maybe they love their job. And this is what my point at the beginning. I'm not trying to convince tradespeople out of the trades. If you're currently in a very manual physical job and you love it and that's what you want to do, that's awesome. But I hear those people as well saying, but I'd also like to have multiple income streams. Why not start something like this on the side as well? Because perhaps for now, it's just a case of picking up a copy of the Home Turf Advantage book that we'll link below this episode, and you can just kind of like follow along the steps and figure out the steps to getting one of these businesses up and running. And from there, maybe at some point you think, yeah, I want to do this full time now, and you're ready to jump into our Dropship Unlocked program, book a call with us through that way as well. So I think if you don't want to do this full time, don't feel that you have to from the outset. You can just get this up and running, making a few £1,000s per month, and then say it's at 5-10 grand per month, and you think, do you know what? I don't really need to work anymore. And actually the time's come where I don't want it to take that physical toll on my body anymore. I'm out. And you can kind of step back. You have a system that's built. It's the ultimate insurance policy from any physical problems in the future.
It's a cliche, but anything worthwhile isn't going to come easy necessarily, and it's going to take some work to put in. But I'd argue that the work that somebody in a trade's put in already to get themselves to a position where they're making money from any trade, they've had to put in a lot of hard work. They've had to learn new skills that was completely new to them at one stage. They've been through the apprentice route where no doubt they've been picked on by the people that were more experienced. And that was a very difficult time already that they've been through. So if you can show that same resilience when building a business, I'm sure then a lot of those skills are transferable. I mean, you think about self-discipline that somebody needs to have, the work ethic, focus on excellence. Also, as I mentioned, if you are self-employed, then you have to have experience with customers, which is going to serve you so well. And also speaking with suppliers is going to come to you second nature. You'll be able to sign some great suppliers for whichever niche you go into. So I'm sure there will be people in jobs today, Lewis, that maybe have nothing to do with dropshipping, but they're thinking about making that switch for some of the reasons that we've discussed today. So I guess my overall question would be that people probably have in their mind, Do people need to have any prior experience before they get started with dropshipping?
No prior experience is necessary with this. What is necessary is a readiness to and willingness to learn, to adapt, and to work consistently, and to ask questions when you get stuck, which, by the way, you inevitably will. I get stuck all the time. James gets stuck all the time. But we go to the community, we ask the people that we've surrounded ourselves with who are also running these businesses day to day, so that we have this access to like a collective brain of e-commerce entrepreneurs that we can just tap into at any one moment. So that's why it's so important. But coming to this with prior experience really isn't necessary, because we've laid out the steps to get you to the point where you have enough experience to get up and running. So yeah, honest answer is no, you don't need to. You need a transferable work ethic. You need to come from a very strong kind of problem solving background, and that's something that you can absolutely adapt into this model. And I think, as you saw from the successful members we alluded to earlier who have made that transition, you need to come at this with a get things done or a can do attitude. There's no point showing up playing the victim and then saying, I couldn't do it and it was because of this or it was because of that. Like, when you're an entrepreneur, the buck stops with you, and that's the kind of attitude we need members who come into our program to have, because we're not there to provide sympathy for people who get stuck. We're there to help them get past it and to get up and running. It doesn't serve them. It doesn't serve anyone else. So you got to be willing to learn as you go, because like with mastering a trade, understanding dropshipping comes with time. It comes with practice. You're going to get things wrong. There are going to be bumps along the way, and it's a rocky road to getting up and running. But you could start with free resources like absorbing every episode of this podcast, go back, listen to the whole back catalogue of it. By the end of that, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what to do to get up and run. And if you're someone who just wants to, take the fast track, to have us hold your hand throughout the whole process, there are many resources available to navigate through this world of e-commerce. We're just one of them. We'd love to be able to help you if you think we're the right fit for you. And I think the other thing you got to remember as well is, with anything like this, persistence is key. You might not see results straight away in day one, in week one, in month one, right? But there's a learning curve in every new venture. And if we stay patient, we exercise perseverance, persistence throughout the whole process, throughout those challenges, then eventually you're going to start with the right attitude to see those results and get those early wins, at which point you realize that the others who fell by the wayside, who gave up after the first few hurdles, were never going to stay the course. And that's why you'll succeed in this industry.
It's definitely reassuring to hear. I know that the most successful members that we see in the program are people that have the right mindset and not necessarily have come with any skills, because you can learn the skills, but you can't necessarily, or it's harder to adapt your mindset, especially once it's ingrained in you at a later age. But if you've got the right mindset, you're set up for success. I truly believe that. Absolutely. So for any tradespeople that are listening and perhaps they are thinking about making the jump, what would their next steps be?
Yeah, I think the first thing you've got to do is just educate yourself. So I've said it a couple of times already, but just learn as much as you can about dropshipping and e-commerce. There's loads of resources available online. I think it can be a bit confusing because there is conflicting information on there online if you're not sure on the type of model you want to take. So if you're based in the UK and you like the idea of not making your customers wait for 30 days for delivery and not having to order huge shipping containers worth of stock from China, then I'd go back and listen to all of the episodes of the DSU podcast, because this podcast is the one that guides you through how to do that if you're in the UK and want to do it that way. And if you are more of a reader and you prefer to just have a step-by-step guide to do it, then pick up a copy of my book, The Home Turf Advantage. We've linked it below. It guides you through the whole process of getting a business set up from start to finish. And yeah, I mean, for the cost of a couple of cups of coffee, you can get a copy of the book now. And when you do so, you actually get put into our private members community as well, with lots of other dropshippers who you can share the journey with too. So that's really good about getting around other people who are on that same journey as you. So that's part of the bundle package when you do purchase the book from us. And if books aren't your thing though, if you're not really much of a reader and you want to just take the fast track and join a community to get up and running straight away and connect with others who've made that transition, then you can do that at dropshipunlocked.com/free. Watch the training there, and then you can book a call with our team. But whatever you do, the key is do something. Take one action today. If you're listening to this and it's resonating with you and you're thinking, this is something I want to do, I want to take a step away from a manual labor job in the trades perhaps, then don't wait, because if you wait and put it off, the moment will pass and you'll look back in 5 years and think, oh yeah, I forgot about that. I never did anything about it. right? So if you want to learn how we run dropshipping businesses in the UK using UK suppliers providing next day delivery, then a good first step as any for you could be to open up your web browser, type in dropshipunlocked.com/free, click the button, enter your details, and start watching our free training straight away, because it's where all of our successful members started. So I'd say it's a pretty good first step for you to take. Just a quick heads up, if you'd like to share your questions, stories, successes, or challenges, you can email us directly at podcast@dropshipunlocked.com. And you never know, we might even feature you on the next podcast episode.
Also, if you want access to today's show notes or any of the resources we've mentioned in the episode today, then head over to dropshipunlocked.com/podcast. We also have a small favour to ask of you. If you enjoyed the show so far, if you could take a minute to leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice.
You wouldn't believe how much your reviews help us grow the podcast. We'll even read out some of our favourites on the next episode. So if you want to be featured on the show, please do go ahead and leave us a review today. Thanks so much for your support. We really couldn't do it without you, and we absolutely love hearing what you think of the podcast.
Okay, now let's answer a question from a listener. So remember, if you want your questions answered on a podcast episode coming up, then all you need to do is email podcasts@dropshipunlocked.com. So that's exactly what Konstantin has done. So Konstantin, who we mentioned earlier in the episode, actually he comes from a trade background, and he has asked a topic that I'd like to hear being discussed more in depth on the podcast, if possible, would be about cash flow management. So what to look out for, what to try and predict, and profit margins.
Okay, big topic, Konstantin. So I'll do my best to try and answer that question, but probably deserves its whole podcast episode on its own, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, first thing is it's really important to track your expenses with a business like this. So you've really got to keep an eye on your business expenses, specifically at the beginning, or especially at the beginning. Both fixed expenses, so the things that will be taken from your bank account regardless of how many sales you make, and then variable expenses, which are sales that are dependent on the sales that you make. So the deductions from each sale. So for example, things like the percentage of the payment processor or Shopify payments that would take from each sale, or the cost of goods for each sale. So yeah, I think the expenses that we track, the main ones for this business model, are going to be things like advertising costs, platform hosting, web hosting, the software that you have, obviously supplier cost of goods, so cost of actually buying the products. So without a clear methodology on how to do this, it can get a little bit tricky. So in week 6 of our program, we actually give you a dropshipping UK profit tracker tool that we've had designed for this business model. If you're in the UK, you're charging VAT, that I've had built and just have given to you in week 6. So if you're in there, you can just jump into week 6, download a copy of that and start applying that. But yeah, I think advertising is probably going to be, aside from the cost of goods, is going to be your biggest expense in this business. So it's important from the outset to work out your target return on ad spend. So you want to know what your break-even return on ad spend is. So how much would you be happy generating back for every pound that you spend on ads in order to just break even? Because that's the first kind of goal. We would just want to figure out, like, how do we not make a loss on every sale? Because that's like a lot of businesses don't even figure that out. Then when you know you're doing that, you can start to build in margin and say, well, now what's the target cost per sale, or the target return on ad spend that we could make for every £1 that we spend? So maybe it's like, for every £1 I spend, as long as I'm bringing in £10 back in sales, that's a 10-to-1 return on ad spend. That's really good. That works with the margins that my suppliers have given me. This is going to depend on your suppliers and your margins. So if you input those details into the tracker that we give you in week 6 of the program, then you'll be able to see on every single sale that you make exactly how much profit you made. You put in a sale for £2,000 and you see, okay, I made £600 profit on this sale. It cost me £40, £30 to make the sale on Google Ads. So I made a net of £570 profit on that one sale. Okay, good. I can see that. Perfect. That's your variable costs and expenses. Then you've got like £29 a month for Shopify, whatever else, a couple of like other little pieces of software we use here and there. But just understanding that can really help you, because obviously you can then go and negotiate with suppliers and increase that margin at a later date once they start to see sales coming in from you. The other things to look out for are taxes. So once you hit that threshold of 80,000, you want to make sure that you're registering for VAT And then at that point, every quarter, if you're paying your VAT quarterly, making sure that you're setting aside that cash for VAT. You don't want to go and spend the money that you then owe to HMRC every quarter. So maybe having a separate bank account where you put that aside, keep it there in the business. The other things as well are, once entrepreneurs start making money online, a good problem to have is you need to start keeping some of that profit aside for taxes, things like corporation tax, which is the percentage tax that the UK government impose on companies for the profit that they make in their business. So at the moment, it's anywhere between 19 and 25% as of this date in 2023. And that might change in the future, but you've got to make sure that you're keeping that money aside, because it's tempting when you start making a load of money to either reinvest it and spend all that profit, which technically is possibly a good thing to do, because then it isn't profit if you're reinvesting it. But if you are taking it out of the company and you say, I want to go and buy a nice watch or a nice car or a nice house or whatever, and then suddenly a huge tax bill comes in, not only have you got the tax bill for, the 19 to 25%, depending on how much profit you made in your business, but if you've withdrawn that money from the company, you then have a personal tax liability as well. So you've got to be aware of that. And a sneaky thing that HMRC will do that not many entrepreneurs are aware of when they first start is that they'll ask you to pay 50% of the next year's tax bill, what they predict you'll owe them for the following year. And that's called your payment on account. And so this catches a lot of people out, because they take money out of the business and they think, great, I'm doing good. And then suddenly there's a tax bill for 50% of what they took out in the last tax year that gets demanded. So these are all the things, all the pitfalls that you can see how, if you don't have a proven step-by-step roadmap to do this, it would be very easy to slip up on. That's why we try and break down as much of this stuff as possible throughout the program. So yeah, this catches people out. And I think hopefully, Konstantin, that short answer gives you like a snapshot of what you should be looking at, but there's a whole separate topic on this. And I think that, if you're not already in the DSU program where we guide you through all this stuff, then maybe we'll try and do a full episode on this in the future.
Thank you for your question, Konstantin. Great question. Numbers are so important. So hopefully that short answer helps you there. If anyone wants a more in-depth answer about cash flow and the money side behind running one of these businesses, let us know in the comments of the YouTube. Also, you can answer in whichever podcast platform you're using, in the Q&A section in Spotify. Let us know if you want to learn more about the numbers side, and we can definitely do an episode on that in the future. So thank you, Lewis, for your answer there. Now let's highlight a recent review for the podcast that we've received from Ashley. So Ashley, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Ashley said, congrats on the podcast. I will certainly be listening to all episodes while I'm traveling.
Thank you very much for your review, Ashley. We really hope you enjoy listening to the DSU podcast on your travels. Fancy making a guest appearance on our podcast? Well, you can. Simply drop us a review or a rating on whichever platform you're tuning into us, or if YouTube is where you hang out, then leave us a comment on our YouTube channel under this video, and you might just hear it in our next episode. Plus, if there's someone in your life who's teetering on the edge of starting their own business, why not give them a nudge with this episode? Your simple act of sharing this episode could be the catalyst that they need to dive headfirst into their entrepreneurial adventure. So don't hold back, spread the word, whether it's on social media or ping them a WhatsApp message with this link to this episode. You never know, you could be the person that changes the course of the rest of their life, and they'd have you to thank.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Dropship Unlocked podcast. We hope you found today's episode useful and inspiring.
Remember, if you're ready to take the next step towards creating your own high-ticket dropshipping business, our step-by-step mentorship program can help. Just head to dropshipunlocked.com/free to learn more and get started on your own journey to financial independence.
Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss another episode, and leave us a review if you've enjoyed what you hear today. We love hearing from our listeners, and we'll even read out some reviews on the next episode.
And finally, thanks for choosing to spend your time with us today. We really appreciate you, and we'll be back soon with more valuable insights and tips on high-ticket dropshipping.